Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. I'm here today with Daniel Hall, and we're going to be talking about RevOps. So revenue operations, if you don't know what RevOps is. It's this new kind of, it's been going about 2 or 3 years where what we try and do is get all revenue creation things together in one place. But rather than me talk about it, as you can see, I'm not really an expert. I've got Daniel Hall in to talk about it. So Daniel, first and foremost, before we get into it, where can people find you?
Yeah, first, thank you for having me, Tim. I really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
the conversation. And people can find me on LinkedIn, Daniel-Hall BB, at the end of the LinkedIn URL.
And you were just telling me before we came on live, you've got a 3-month-old or
3-year-old and a 4-month-old. Yep.
Oh, the numbers the wrong way around. Yeah. Okay.
That's all right. Both boys. One will be 3 May the 1st, and then one just turned 4 months last week. So had his 4-month checkup just recently.
Wow. So before we dive in about why don't you tell me what you think RevOps is?
Yeah, for me, I think revenue ops is the alignment of your key stakeholders in your go-to-market function. It's the integration of your technology into that go-to-market strategy. It's the data and the data governance that's around that functionality for your go-to-market strategy. And it's the process optimization that goes there as well. So trying to kind of understand everything that's going on through that customer journey to optimize and create the most efficient revenue strategy possible for your go-to-market.
Because when I was in corporate, we would have there was sales, there was marketing, and we had this team in so most SDR type functionality in Europe or certainly in the UK is in Ireland. Mm-hmm. And so we had this team of SDRs in Ireland, and all of us had their own strategy. So we'd go to the SDR team and say, this is the way that we're organized this year. And they say, oh, well, we're not organized like that. So you should have come to us a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I think that's kind of some of the problems, especially with some of your go-to-market strategy, is that when you get to a certain size, especially, or even at your startup level, if you're not careful, especially in a remote kind of world, your philosophies can get siloed inside of their different departments, whether that's marketing, sales, and customer success and product, or if it's inside of your own sales organization, like you're pointing out, where you have your development team that's trying to go get something and your sales team on the other end that's trying to do maybe a different task or go after a different model. So that's definitely something that can happen for sure.
So thanks to Jake for still actively using what Daniel taught me. Well, there you go.
Thanks, Jake. Jake's the man. Love Jake.
It's always good to have you. It's always good to have people to come and support you on these things. And thank you, Jake, for that. That's awesome. Let's picture this. So I'm a small organization. I'm a startup. I'm just starting, and I'm just starting to measure things from a sales perspective. I've got a couple of salespeople. We're going to be doing some cold outreach. Where do I start, and what's the thing that I should be doing with RevOps?
Yeah, I think the first thing that you want to do is kind of understand what your go-to-market motion is. Is it B2C, or is it more commonly is it a PLG motion or a B2B motion? And then kind of start to understand, okay, now I'm going to.
So B2C is business to consumer. B2B is business to business. PLG?
PLG, product-led growth.
Okay, right.
Or some combination of those, right? So there has to be some sort of combination potentially of those go-to-market motions that you can have. And then you want to start aligning your stakeholders inside of that business to that go-to-market motion that you have, or combo. Once you've done that, then it's really important to start gathering that data in a really doggedly determined way, because that's really going to be going to kick you in the rear if you let it go on too long without getting some governance around that. So data and governance is going to be key next. Once you start to see that data start to come in, then you can start aligning those processes that you have towards that motion of what that data is telling you. So now you can start to say, okay, we don't have enough MQLs. Now let's go make sure that we can create some MQLs with this motion or this motion or this motion. And this is how we're going to measure those. And this is the source we're going to give those when they come in. If you do that on the front end, you're in really good shape. What I see commonly is that people aren't doing that on the front end, and they have to go back in and fix a lot of this old data that's going to be hard to say. So the 800-pound gorilla in the room right now is marketing attribution, right? I imagine marketing attribution is kind of like a college group project where everybody gets assigned an assignment, and the teacher's got to kind of sort out who gets credit for what part of the assignment. And most companies will go with first touch or last touch attribution, meaning whoever starts the school project gets credit for the whole thing. Well, that's not really fair to the rest of the group. Or in last touch attribution, whoever turns the assignment in gets credit for the whole thing. And that's not really fair to the whole group, right? So that data that I'm talking about there is going to be very key for you to kind of determine how you want to use that in your marketing attribution function, in your sales function. It's going to determine your compensation plans and alignment. So you can get your SDRs and your AEs in alignment towards their compensation.
So, I mean, should we be collecting data? Because quite often what happens is we get a CRM and we collect data in that, which has we may be having a campaign code where we're looking at that we've got certain, we've got certain opportunities based on a certain campaign. Should we be looking at data before that?
I think so. I think you should be looking at data as soon as it starts to come in to kind of understand where it's coming from and why it's coming in. That's really going to help you kind of understand where that information is coming from in your business and what you can do about it. We used a lot of source coding for ourselves. We were really lucky. We had a really great data and BI organization where I was. And we used a lot of source coding in our CRM to determine where that data was coming from. But even with us, we had two different kinds of motions, a product-led growth motion and a B2B motion. And so now you're trying to determine, is this part of the PLG motion? Is this part of the B2B motion? How do we kind of discern those and differentiate those? And what's really worth spending time on from a human perspective? So when you get these processes going, there's a lot of incentive in your business to automate those, right? But if you don't know where that data is kind of coming from and you can't really tell like what's significant and what's not, then you're going to have a hard time automating. And that means you have to put humans on everything. And that's a really expensive model. So you want to be careful there. So
we're checking the data as it comes in. We're also checking the data in the CRM. Should we be afterwards? What are we going to do when we're going to look at that data and look at the process? What questions can we be asking?
Yeah, once you've kind of aligned your entire team and your go-to-market organization along those KPIs, and that's really key, making sure that everybody's understands what the definitions of those KPIs are and that they're all in alignment, that's what it is. Everybody's in alignment on the time frames, what they are, with how they're measured, those kind of things. Once that happens, now you can start to look at your customer journey as a whole and start to see where things aren't really matching up to the data that you want, right? So now you can start to see, this is where my hashtag stop the leaks comes in, right?
Yes.
Now you can start to see where the leaks are inside of your funnel. Well, if you've got a ton of leads at the top end of your funnel and you've got a ton of, qualified leads in the sales organization, maybe there's some alignment there, or maybe you're overqualifying because the conversion rate at the back end of the funnel is too low for what you're kind of expecting, right? So now you can start to look at this kind of more broadly and say, okay, here's where we're really winning. Here's where we need some help and where we need to stop the leaks. And here's what we're going to do about that. A lot of times, Tim, especially with smaller companies, what I'm seeing is that there's no real process for them to go in and look at the funnel on a continuous basis and say, these are the projects that we're doing to move the needle on this particular metric, right? That's what a revenue operations organization will do inside of your business. That's what our sprint reviews are about. That's what our backlog grooming is about. We want to move the needle on those particular metrics to get the revenue back into the business and make it optimized to do better with less. That's what we're about.
And so what? So if I'm a CEO, I am a CEO of a small business. As a CEO of a small business, what So I need to start measuring stuff. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think what I would start measuring is kind of some of the important parts of it, right? Who are you creating awareness with? How are you measuring what your awareness is? How are you measuring what the education is, how you're different from other people outside in the world? And then how are you measuring who's choosing your solution on that particular go-to-market motion, right? Those are very meaningful metrics to your business. And I'm fairly sure, being who you are, you're probably already measuring those to some degree. What a revenue ops organization can do is say, are these benchmarked appropriately? And what are we doing about incrementally driving these up to create incrementally more revenue? And what I found is if you start further back on the funnel, in that top end of the funnel, and incrementally drive those, there's a downstream effect that helps your overall revenue, which is great.
And so once we're doing that and we're checking and we're understanding our average deal size, deal velocity, and things, that where can we start moving from and start advancing the organization on that?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that you have to be really careful of with your revenue ops organization is that you don't get into the specific strategies of driving those particular business models inside of your business. That's what your CMO is for. That's what your CRO is for, your VP of sales. That's what your, VP of customer success is for, and those kind of things. But what you're doing is you're identifying those really, I think really great revenue operations teams will identify those friction points in your funnel and then alert those strategic minds to those particular problems. And they may even bring a potential solution. Hey, we noticed that MQLs are down. We think that this is the problem. Here's what we would suggest doing about it from a source perspective. But you have to allow your people inside of your business to do the work that they were brought in to do, right? So you don't want to infringe too much upon what they're trying to do there. You want to give them the latitude to go do their work.
So what you're saying is that RevOps is an advisory position within the organization. You're not going to tell them. You may say this is what we suggest, but at the end of the day, it's the various departmental heads that need to make a decision about yes or no whether we're going to do that.
I think it's 100% right. I think one of the things that's really important about your revenue ops organization is that they're going to be an independent contributor to your balls and strikes that are being called inside of your game every quarter, right? If MQLs are down, the person who you don't want to tell you that is your CMO potentially, right? Because they have a lot at stake on those being high, and the reason that those are high, they want those to be that way. So from a revenue ops organization, you really get a clear, especially when you have those KPIs really defined inside your organization, you get a clear picture of whether or not you're having a successful quarter.
Yeah. And do you also then look at things like renewals, expansions, upsells, cross sales, resales, that sort of stuff? Is that where you would be forensically looking for those sort of things as well?
Yeah, I think when you're thinking about I think of the funnel in two separate sides. It's kind of the winning by design bow tie funnel.
The bow tie, yeah.
And on the left side of the funnel, it's all your new revenue that's coming in, and on the right side of the funnel, it's all your retention revenue and your expansion revenue and what's there. When you're on that right side of the funnel, for me, I think there's really two important kind of concepts. One is, what is the health of that account, and how are you managing the health of that account? And then how are you operating based on that health information, right? So if that account's really healthy and you have a great relationship, there's probably an opportunity for expansion there, whether it's through cross-sell or resale through that company. And then if it's not very healthy, it's about what are we doing to get that very healthy. And from a revenue ops organization, what you're really trying to do is inform that customer success organization of what's healthy and what's not and why. So why are things not going to retain? What's the predictive level of them not to retain? And then if they are going to retain, what's the opportunity for an increase there? Do we have everything that we need to get? Is there something that's there that's open to us to kind of go explore with that business?
And are you and would that be a case of doing that on a quarterly by quarterly basis in terms of saying, right, we have the current quarter which we're going to close. So if you're on a financial year, you're on a Q2. Mm-hmm. But what's happening in Q3?
Yeah, I think as predictive as you can make it is totally the best case scenario there for quarter, potentially even the next 6 months. I think with a lot of smaller businesses, it's monthly, right? How can we get to the next month and see what's there so that we can really start to figure that out? And that's when you're really starting to kind of build those processes internally. It's going to be a smaller chunk that you have to go after. Now, after those are built and you can really start to see, okay, these are defined and we're really cooking with gas. Now I can start to set that out more quarterly or maybe even more biannually to get those to the best of our kind of ability.
Right. Because I think that because I agree with you that the more that we can actually plan and start looking ahead, because at the end of the day, there's a certain amount of the sales are looking after this quarter, and when you go to salespeople, they say, well, what's happening next quarter? Go, don't ask me, I don't know, because I'm concentrating on getting this one closed.
Well, it's all about that hygiene of the data and also how aligned everyone is to those KPIs as well, right? So let's take, for instance, bad stage information. If you have bad stage information and you don't have great conversion rates between your stages, then you really don't understand what your forecast is going to be. And that's going to make things difficult for you. One of the key problem points that I see in a lot of organizations that I'm kind of talking to right now is their handoff between their sales and their customer success organization. Right. Because they can't forecast well, they can't tell you how much revenue is going into that customer success operation, right? And so they don't know what they need to be prepared for from a people headcount standpoint on that customer success side.
Yeah.
It makes it very difficult on your organization to onboard successfully and then create impact in that customer base. And then it makes them have to prioritize and pick and choose, which is not a good place to be in with your customers, right? It's like, I don't want to prioritize and pick and choose. I want to have the headcount to sustain what's coming in. So I have to have sustainable growth.
Yeah. I mean, when now that you're talking about forecast, forecast is always been something that's been difficult. And especially in the current climate where, God knows what will happen tomorrow. We've had so many changes and shocks that we just don't know what's going to happen. But there again, forecasting has always been difficult.
Yeah, I think forecasting is one of those things that is there's a lot of different things that go into it. There's the climate of the economy that we're in right now, which is going to make things maybe a little more conservative on your forecasting that you really want to bring to the table. It's the alignment of your go-to-market organization to say, hey, these are the definitions for where we think things are and why we think that they're there. That's a really big part of your forecast and making sure that things are in the right way. And then it's about how you're, enabling your sales organization or your marketing organization to put data into the CRM effectively so that you can get that good data to forecast. And even on your customer success side, what's available to grow and what's not. I think doing all those is going to give you the most accurate forecast possible. But you're still going to have to kind of understand and dig into the weeds a little bit in an economy like today to say, okay, what's real, what's not? How can I discern that from these conversations that I'm having with my people? Because you're going to have to know that right now. It's not, this is not the time to be faint of heart and sit behind your computer and kind of trust your numbers. You got to go talk to your people for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, what as leaders do we need to do that? We've basically got to be in constant conversation, haven't we, in terms of what's going on with the deal, but balancing that with not micromanaging.
Oh yeah. I think if you have your set parameters appropriate and they understand, and everybody's in alignment on what to do there, your more senior members of your organization should be able to say, this is why this deal is in sales accepted, right? It's your non-senior members of your organization that have to kind of understand, you have to be more directive with those people and delegative with those senior people, right? And hope that there is alignment there across that organization. But that's where your definitions come into play. They have to be solid.
Great. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today about RevOps. We've covered an awful lot of ground. I really appreciate you giving your insight and remind people where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I post a lot there. You can find me there if you ever want to talk RevOps or you want to, kind of just touch base and say hi.
And you have your own hashtag, don't you?
I do. Stop the leaks. Hashtag stop the leaks.
Stop the leaks.
follow that. I'm posting a lot of things about getting your revenue organization, your go-to-market strategy up and going. So follow me there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Daniel, for coming on and talking about RevOps. And thank you for Jake for supporting you as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Jake. See ya.
Thanks, Daniel. Bye.